After a terrible ferry bombing kills many people, ATF agent Doug Carlin is brought into a secret program. His job is to find the terrorist who did it. During this search, Carlin finds out he might be able to go back in time to stop the bombing from happening. Can Carlin figure out how to use this chance to save lives, or will trying to change the past cause even more problems? In Algiers, New Orleans, an explosion on a ferry conveying sailors from the USS Nimitz and their families on a Mardi Gras excursion kills 543. Lonely ATF agent Doug Carlin is tasked with investigating the terrorist attack. Sheriff Reed informs him of the corpse of a woman, Claire Caviezel, which is washed up on the beach. Her body was discovered 1 hour before the explosion, but was burned with the same explosive. The agents suspect her death was staged to resemble an explosion, but the corpse came too quickly. Doug also learns that his partner, Agent Larry Minuti, was killed in the blast. Doug discovers that Claire has explosive discharge all over her body, comparable to a bomb. She is connected to the case somehow. He goes to her house and discovers that he had a call from her phone that very morning and called her back, most likely after she had died. He discovers blood-stained rags, a revolver, and the phrase, "You can save her," on her refrigerator. Her SUV is missing, and it is believed to have been used to blow up the ship. FBI agent Prizwara invites Doug to join an experimental surveillance squad commanded by Jack McCready. He is told of a device that can deliver this sort of live surveillance from 4 days ago, 4 days, 6 hours, 3 minutes, and 45 seconds, via a satellite system, which takes 4 days to collect the material so that it may be watched just once. Doug instructs them to focus on the mystery dead woman, Claire Caviezel, and follow. Claire writes about being watched in her journal, which Doug keeps and reads 4 days after it was retrieved as evidence from her apartment. She receives a call from the terrorist inquiring about buying her automobile. However, she will be unavailable when he wishes to meet, so they do not strike a bargain. As the monitoring continues, Doug suddenly lifts a laser pointer and points it at the viewing screen. She notices and reacts to it. The viewing room system fails, and numerous individuals cry, "Who breached the field?" Doug understands that the pictures are from somewhere other than the past, since Claire reacted to the laser light. The scientists inform him about Einstein-Rosen bridges, often known as space folding technology. Dr. Denny exhibits a sheet of paper and folds it to connect 2 spots. Doug wonders why they can't send themselves back, but they explain that any live creature will arrive dead. Nothing can be returned. Gerbils and other experimental animals have died on arrival. Attempting to breach the field disrupts the local electrical grid. A huge blackout in the central United States, which was blamed on Canada, was the fault of operator Gunner. They ultimately agree to send a little piece of paper back in time to alert Carlin as an anonymous tip, where the terrorist will be waiting to arrange his car deal. The scientists chatter about different time paradox theories. Operator Shanti creates a graphic depicting a branching hypothesis in which a new timeline is produced with the new event. The appearance of the paper and the previous timeline disappears. However, Dr. Denny assures that nothing will change. They prepare and transmit the message back. Unfortunately, their time is incorrect. Before the message displays, Doug, in the past, concludes a dispute with his partner Larry and leaves his office. Larry then notices the paper on Carlin's desk and departs to pursue the tip, which leads to the bomber arriving at the ferry pier. The squad cringes as they realize they have sentenced Larry to death. They are now focusing on the pier, trying to obtain a good shot of the terrorist so they can find him. His photo is entered into a computer to be compared against mug pictures in search of a match. Larry meets the terrorist, gets shot, and appears to have died. Larry is taken into the terrorist's truck and driven away with him. As they pursue him, the observing crew declares that he is leaving their viewing region and will soon be out of reach. Doug starts the Humvee carrying the mobile viewing gear, giving pursuit in the present so that the history in that location may be observed. Following an accident, the rig is broken, preventing Doug from seeing the past via it, but the base team can. They yell commands at him. He takes the route to a burned-out fishing camp on the bayou. The ambulance has smashed into the rubble of the main structure, but the terrorist has previously taken Larry out back. Prizwara gulps as the terrorist pours accelerant fuel upon Larry's body. Carlin may now see the remnants of a fire on the pavement. Doug realizes they're about to see a murder. Unfortunately, Larry regains consciousness and is shot one more time before his body is set on fire. Doug notices some activity in the water nearby and lifts a trapdoor, revealing 3 alligators consuming what appear to be Larry's remains. They all talk about what happened on the phone, and they understand that all they accomplished was adjusting how Larry died. Doug reminds us that the terrorist still needs a vehicle to carry out his bombing, because the one he had intended to use has bullet holes. That implies the terrorist will require Claire's automobile, implying that altering one thing does not change anything. Doug continues to investigate the property, inside the structure, peering through the burning rubble. In a crack, he finds a little thing he recognizes as Claire's. He kisses it and puts it in his pocket. The computer search yields a match on the terrorist's photo, Carol Orstat. He is apprehended and taken in for interrogation. Discussing his background with Doug, it appears that the military rejected him twice because he was deemed mentally ill. McCready informs the crew that they are shutting down after apprehending the offender. Doug is irritated because, for once, he wants to do more than catch the bad man after the fact. He wants to stop the evil guy before it happens. He arrives at Claire's house and notices the magnets on the refrigerator that spell out, "You can save her." Dr. Denny agrees to assist Doug in his quest to go into the past. Doug removes his undershirt and boxers and enters the little transit area, embracing his knees. Denny reminds Doug that the system's electromagnetic pulse, EMP, will stop his heart. If not revived, he will die. He came 4 days ago on an empty gurney in a hospital operating room. When physicians see his jolting body, they hurry to treat him. When they ripped off his clothes, they discovered the words "Revive me" scrawled on his flesh. He awakens later in a hospital ward, takes some clothing, and snatches a bunch of flowers to use as concealment. Outside the hospital, he borrows an ambulance and proceeds to the fish camp, where Claire is tied up with a bag over her head. Trying to fight her captor, Orstat, she rakes his face with her nails. Orstat is furious and douses her with gasoline. Doug rams the ambulance right into the building where they are. Orstat shoots Doug in the shoulder and then runs. Doug brings Claire home to tidy up. He walks around her apartment, taking in all of the things he's seen via the viewer, as well as the inquiry into her death. He arranges the refrigerator magnets to spell "You can save her." While he is cleaning up, she emerges wearing the red and white outfit in which she died. He orders her to change, claiming it is what the victim wore. He reaches into a wardrobe for clothing, and she pulls a gun on him, stating that he cannot be what he claims, pointing out his familiarity with her house and the fact that he has asked her no questions. She phones the ATF, who confirms his presence and looks, but she wants to know more. He remarks, "What if you had to tell someone the most important thing in the world, but you knew they'd never believe you?" She responds, "I'd try." After explaining, she assists in bandaging his shoulder. While being treated for his injuries, Doug finds that many of the items he sees in the current version of Claire's apartment came from him. The bloodied rags and towel, the magnets with the message, and the phone call he received. Doug discovers he's already going back in time and failed to prevent the blast. They travel to the ferry, where he will disarm the device while Claire informs the guards. Unfortunately, as Orstat departs the boat and sees Claire's truck, he realizes he has a problem and returns to the ship. Claire notices this and hops on just before the ship departs the wharf. Doug arrives at the bomb-laden truck to discover Claire inside, chained to the steering wheel and her mouth taped shut. Doug provokes Orstat into a confrontation by using his own words from the interrogation: destiny, patriotism, and collateral harm. Rather than submit, Doug hops into Claire's car and drives her to smash Orstat, standing in front of another car. However, the automobile is still wired to explode, and there isn't enough time to disarm it or explain anything to the guards. Doug instructs her to drive the car off the ship and into the ocean. As they sink, he kicks off the windshield and rips the driving wheel out of the column, allowing her to swim to the surface. Unfortunately, the ship continues overhead. Claire makes it to the surface. The car explodes underwater, resulting in a firestorm of debris in the air. Claire, now on shore and covered in a blanket, is in tears at Doug's death. The officials asked Claire if she would talk to an ATF agent. She turns and finds Doug, from the present, approaching her. She stammers in surprise, and he inquires whether they have met. As they leave his car, she recalls his earlier statements in the film. What if you had to tell someone the most important thing in the world, but you knew they'd never believe you? And he unwittingly echoes her earlier response, "I'd try."